Could the loss to Houston actually prove that Iowa State is, in fact, a national title contender? We'll talk about it today on Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you for being here every single day and making this your first watch or listen of the day, wherever you're watching or listening. I appreciate it more than you know. Be sure to subscribe so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. Today, it's all going to be men's basketball. Obviously, we're going to break down the game against Houston, Iowa State's loss, what happened there. Were there some positives? We'll talk about that in the second segment. And then finally, what is going on with this whole Otzelberger to Indiana deal? We'll talk about that then. Before we get that far, though, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Let's just dive right on into Houston, Iowa State, a top 10 matchup for the ages, or so I thought for sure. Houston comes away with the win 68-59, and that is it's a 9-point win for Houston. Fine. That's cool. I actually don't hate it. I don't think that's too bad. The one thing we haven't talked about yet on this program, as it was released after I taped, I suppose, Iowa State was without Curtis Jones and Keshon Gilbert in this game. Keshon dealing with a muscle strain and Curtis dealing with an illness. So two leading scorers for Iowa State sidelined effectively against the top 5 Houston squad. Certainly, we've talked at length about how big this game was, how much Iowa State had to prove kind of in this game, bit of a meter stick, whatever they call that, a type of game for Iowa State. Where do they kind of find themselves with a full starting lineup against one of the top teams of the nation? And then they're without their 2 top scorers. So this whole thing around Houston now has a very weird aura in my eyes. I'm looking at this now through the lens of a bit of a hypothetical. What did the team that went out on the floor do? And what could they do now with their 2 guys back? Same thing we were doing when Milan was out. That's how it feels to me. That being said, let's break down the game. Obviously, Iowa State 9-point loss, down by 12 at halftime, got within 2 to Houston. And so your leading scorer in this game, Milan. Milan came to play for Iowa State with 16 points, going 2 of 9 from 3, 4 of 14 from the floor. Those 16 points all came in the second half, however. So that is obviously important to note. Joshua Jefferson came away with 4 and Deshaun Jackson with 5 as far as bigs goes. Then Lipsey and Heise, your other 2 starters, had 11 and 12. So certainly a solid performance from Nate Heise. We talked about how much can that help this team. I do think that this was a bit of a case of we needed him really, really badly. He didn't necessarily shoot more than normal. Still shot only 3 3-pointers and 5 field goals total. But certainly one of those, somebody's got to step up, right? We saw kind of Milan doing that with his 16 points. Tamin Lipsey, obviously the steal record now, that's a big deal. And significantly faster too. But as far as in this game, 11 points there. Then you got, Chatfield had 8, and that was big as well. On Houston's side, the big, everybody's talking about LJ Cryer, 28 points, 11 of 17 from the field. You're gonna have nights like that. You are, and it seems like Iowa State's having a lot of those, just constantly having guys ball out against us. And I don't know if maybe that's the way we run our defense, or if people are just trying to take down the Clowns because it's one of the top teams in the nation. Very possible. That being said, Iowa State comes up short. Now, I will, obviously address the cylinder foul. I'm going to kind of just leave it as it's going to happen. That's sports. Not every call is going to be perfect. Does it kind of stink that it didn't go in Iowa State's favor? Yes. Is that anything I'm not like? That's something I'm used to at this point. So that's also part of that whole thing. But I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to say that one call was the reason Iowa State lost this game. Did it take a lot of momentum out of the sails? For sure. Was it like a 5, 7, 10? I've seen people talk all the way up to 12-point swing. Yeah, it was a pretty big swing in points. I will say that, but I don't think that that was necessarily the reason that Iowa State lost. And to be completely honest, I can't tell you one reason that Iowa State lost this game. I think overall played a solid game. Thought the effort was 100% there. I thought this team came out and fought real hard. Um, it's just that you're down two of your best players in Houston. Shot really well, played really well. Full strength, in Houston. It's a good team. That's gonna happen. Now, obviously the question is Iowa State any good? Yeah, I think they are. This is a weird one. I want to almost just look entirely past it. To me, this doesn't feel like a game that's even worth looking at. But then you think about it and you almost take down number 5 Houston without your top two guys. And well, now you're looking at it like, well, now we can't ignore this. This is actually maybe an indicator that Iowa State is really freaking good. And obviously, we'll talk more about the positives in the second segment, but that's the whole reason I'm even standing. Well, I guess I suppose I'm sitting, but I'm sitting up here talking about this because, at first it's like, well, sure, the loss stings, but we didn't even have our guys out there. It's like, well, what can we really draw from this? What can we really, this isn't the team that's going to be out there. But actually, that's almost what makes it. That's what makes it more talkable. That's why we're here. As far as is Curtis and Keshon their return tables. I haven't heard anything. I haven't seen anything. They'll play Oklahoma State, I think Tuesday, tomorrow. So that will be maybe a potential. I don't know what illness Curtis has. I am a little bit more concerned about the muscle strain. What's the timeline on that? We can actually, illness is going to go away. But is the muscle strain where on the body? Is it a quad, glute, hammy, calf? Where, how severe, that kind of thing, I am very curious about. Now, can Iowa State win the national title without Curtis and Keshon both missing? No, I don't think so. I don't think this team is that good. However, I mean, they kind of hung in there. They certainly did. Milan getting his groove back was huge. 16 points all in the second half. That's going to be enormous, confidence wise. Nate Heise with 12 points. It's just, are you kidding me? I didn't even know if those words could all go in a sentence together. And the way this team fought back from down 12 at half, and obviously a big scoring drought in there. What is this? 11-5, so about 5 minutes. Iowa State basically scoreless. I think it was like 9 minutes was what I saw on the broadcast, like 9:30 before Tamin hit a three. At one point in there, I don't know if this is that stretch or not, but the fight though is what I'm getting at here is Iowa State kind of fell out of this game at some points, and you still find yourself really with a chance at the end of this one with it getting pretty close. And did you finish? Did you follow through? Not necessarily. Unfortunately, you didn't get it all the way finished. But the fact that they fought back in this one, it does. It says something. It does. I do think that this team is poised for a run if we can stay healthy at this point. We are having conversations about, can this team get all the 8-man rotation all on the floor? I mean, we did it for 4 games and just boom, 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 boom. No problems. That's a huge game against Houston. And what are we doing? All right, well, we got our two leading scorers out, so we're going to need to figure out how we're going to score points. And then, obviously, like defensively, I thought Iowa State hung in there. You hold Houston to 68 on a night where, I mean, Cryer had 28 of those. Like, that's just going to happen. Like, you played pretty well. As far as fast break, 11 points, 16 points off turnovers. This team, moving the ball. Only 4 second chance points, so obviously that's going to play a role in the way that this team is trying to go about it. But certainly better second half than first. 50% from the floor in the second half. Kind of figured out we had to turn it on at some point there, and you come up short, but you can't be too ashamed about this. You really can't. And the reason I've kind of been dancing around it is because this whole second segment here is I'm going to be talking about all the positives we can draw from this. I'm just trying to look at this game as a whole in this first segment. What happened? Okay, we've talked about it. I do think there are positives to draw from this. I really do. We'll talk about that coming up right after this. March basketball is here, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, you pick more or less on at least 2-player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's fast, easy, and keeps every game exciting. This week, I'm looking at Jason Tatum for more than 29 points and Anthony Davis for more than 12 rebounds. I love how I can make my picks in less than 60 seconds and stay engaged all game long. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. So Iowa State ends up falling to Houston, 59-68, 9-point loss. Not a great look. Obviously a very good team in Houston. Maybe that's the eventual national champion. Looks like they'll probably be the Big 12 champion. Obviously the tournament will be another side of that, but regular season wise, Houston, very good team. This is, I thought, one maybe that Iowa State has to win to kind of solidify some credibility here. Not necessarily one you have to win to become, a national champion. You don't have to win though. This isn't the tournament. You win in the tournament. But my point being, this is some real competition. You lose this game. Okay. Where are we at now? Well, we've mentioned it. No Curtis Jones, no Keshon Gilbert. I do think that there are quite a few positives to pull from this game. Almost more positives than negatives, kind of. I don't know if I love saying that because you still lost. But obviously, the first one we'll talk about is the fight in this one. I felt like Iowa State stayed in it. You're down 12. We talked about this in the first segment. Down 12 at halftime there. You get it within 2. Milan coming back from, I believe he shot 0 of 7 in the first half there. 0 of 7. But got 16 in a row in the second half, 6 in a row amidst the 13-0 run. So, I like that they fought back that way. I do think that was certainly a bright spot. Now, the other one, that's one we've kind of already talked about. The other one here is the confidence that everybody on the floor got in this game. I do think Nate Heise, for the second game effectively in the last, obviously UCF is the one that comes to mind, but now with 12 points against Houston, one of the best teams in not only the Big 12, but in basketball, that's awesome. That's big time. Maybe that's going to be the boost. I mean, he shot 4 or 5. Dude's a baller. We knew this, but now can he turn it on now that he's flowing, right? He's kind of in. I mean, he was in this game 32 minutes. Like just a guy starter. Now he's done it. Now we can maybe see this going forward, few less minutes, whatever, but he's still going to get, he's going to get the ball. Maybe he can convert those opportunities. Obviously speaking on minutes here, Joshua Jefferson with 37. Part of that too is Jackson being in foul trouble, kind of for most of this game, but still a lot of minutes from Jefferson there. Only came in with four points. Now that, just saw that, wanted to address that really quickly. Overall, I do think that the confidence boost for this team, it's really going to be framed as this team knows now what they can do without the two dudes, the two guys that are kind of the scorers. Nobody before the season, I guess, expected probably Curtis to explode the way that he has, Cujo, that is. But he has. And now that's kind of been something that this team, it's a thing this team can rely on, right? They'll always have to. I mean, we saw against Colorado, 7 points. Still a big win there. It's just an option, right? This team can beat you in a bunch of different ways. We talk about that all the time. But this is one where now the team can see what they can do without those two guys. So the weird side of that is, well, what does that matter? Like, hopefully you're not playing a bunch of games without these guys, right? Essentially, what I'm trying to get at here is these guys know what they're capable of, right? When they're on the floor, they got more potentially, other than I guess like Jackson, but got more minutes, more opportunities, build their confidence up. I do think that's something that should be noted here. But really where I want to talk here is Milan Momcilovic is now, this was huge for him. The 16 points in the second half, the bounce back that he had in this game, it's going to speak wonders, going forward. and it really comes down to, for me, he knows that he can be that guy for this team. Does he have to be? No. That's what we've got. Keshon and Curtis and potentially Joshua Jefferson, or maybe, who knows, maybe even Nate Heise. Lipsey doesn't really score a bunch of points. He's not kind of that guy, but he's kind of like the face at times. Milan now, I think, and it wasn't a thing that he didn't think he could do this before. I don't think it's that. But I do think that now, there was a moment in this game where Milan, maybe it was at halftime, because it was 0 of 7. It just was like, all right, man, this is my team right now. This is what has to happen. We have to go out there, me being Milan, go out there and ball out, because otherwise what's going to happen here? You don't score those 16 and you don't account for any points. Iowa State then has what, 43? Is that how that works? I think 43 points, 16 of those, 59 Milan. Big deal. Is obviously. So moving forward now, Milan looked very fluid by the end of that, just very comfortable. I would like to see now moving forward that translates over. Maybe he's not shooting 14 field goals, right? Maybe he's only shooting 8, but in those 8, a lot more confident. Feels like his role in the offense is this role, whatever that role is for that game, whatever the game plan might be. But he's able to step up to that plate and know that, hey, I'm a dude on this team. Now, I don't want that to come across like Milan never felt like this was his team, didn't belong. That's not what I'm saying. Not what I'm saying at all. I am just saying that almost turned into a little bit of Milan's got to become Superman for this team, and he was able to do it. He was. 16 points all in the second half and the leading scorer. I mean, that's pretty Superman to me. I don't know, man. It's tough. It is tough, though, because it's still a loss. So there are positives from this. I think this team, this one's going to hurt, but you can feel confident in how close it was without 2 of your starters to effectively. Obviously, Cujo, the 6th starter. But 2 of your main guys that are going to score. You still play really pretty solid defense against a Houston that really kind of balled out. I mean, 19 from Uzon and 11 from Sharp, then obviously the 28 from Cryer. So, I mean, other than that, other than those 3 guys, you hold the rest of the team to 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 points. And maybe, I don't know. Maybe that's whatever. What I'm saying here, though, is I do think there are some positives. Unfortunately, you still take the loss. Still hurts your standings. But there's places you can go from here. You can absolutely go up. You'll face Oklahoma State. Then you've got like Arizona. That'll be one that's going to be a huge mental, obviously, after what happened last time with the 40, I think it was a 48-footer. Where are we going to be at? But this one, at the end of the day, when I can really sit down and look at this, and I said how big this game was going to be before, I really do think that this was, in some ways, a win. Not every way, but certainly in some ways. Really, I think that's all you can ask for, especially with the circumstances they were in. I do need to know, kind of, what's the timeline on this guy, on Curtis and Keshon? What are we looking at here? Because I don't want this to be the situation, when the tournament comes around. Got to stay healthy. And it's not like the tournament is in the far, far future here. No, the tournament's kind of here. A little bit, kind of like pretty soon. We are certainly running out of days before the tournament. So this team's going to have to square up and get ready to go. I do think this was a moral victory in some ways, though. Now, obviously, as I mentioned, the tournament's kind of coming up. We're already kind of having off-season talks. Not really sure why that's happening. We'll talk about the potential for TJ Otzelberger to head to Indiana coming up right after this. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you missed the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth-quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I don't know where this is coming from. I'm going to be completely honest. You're here with Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we're going to have a conversation right now that to me is absolutely ridiculous. Welcome in. Take a seat. Get comfy. Don't get mad at me. I'm just the messenger. Okay. A lot of talks right now about the Indiana Hoosiers and who's going to be the coach next season. Now, if you remember back, we talked already about could TJ Otzelberger go to Miami this season? They were looking for a coach pretty much midseason, whatever. And I threw it out there and I thought, this is ridiculous. Why is TJ Otzel's name even really being talked about? It's ridiculous. Obviously, we are well past that. And TJ is still the coach at Iowa State. Then we talked in December about, a little early Christmas present, I guess, from Jamie Pollard or whatever. I don't know what the timeline exactly was on it. I believe it was before Christmas. TJ Otzelberger signed to an extension through 2032, I think was the year. Big year, big extension. Obviously, Matt Campbell extended around the same time. Big money moves for Jamie Pollard. Big deal. Obviously, we all love TJ Otzelberger and all the success he's had at Iowa State here. And we can talk about that more in a second. But these are all things that I'm laying out because I'm not sure why TJ Otzelberger's name seems to be the answer for this Indiana Hoosiers job. I think it is absolutely ridiculous. I want that to be 100% clear. Okay. People are talking about this. And the first time I saw the report, I was like, oh, this is another Miami situation. I'm not falling for it. I'm not putting anything out there about it because this is ridiculous. Then another article. Boom, boom, boom. They're popping up all over my timeline. And then I start seeing it happen like in podcasts. This isn't just somebody writing to get clicks. It's like, okay, who's going to be the Indiana Hoosiers head coach next season? Well, TJ Otzelberger makes the most sense. What? What? I'm actually speechless a little bit. Now, obviously, I'm going to continue speaking because this is a podcast. But what are you even talking about? Now, I will say, I believe this was on the Field of 68 that I heard this. They were talking about his buyout is now $4 million. So it's like a cheap thing that's doable. Now, if I have $4 million, whoa, that's a lot of money. But apparently in the world of basketball, not that big a deal. The thing here is what they eventually get down to is, does TJ want to actually do this? That's what the answer. That's the point of those $4 million I bring up, because it's like doable. This is very mathematically doable, but does TJ want to leave Iowa State? And I don't have a surprise for you. I'm not bringing in TJ Otzelberger split screen with me right now and having him answer the question. I wish I could. It'd be really cool. I wish we were tight like that. I don't even know if that'd be something he'd talk about. But I imagine, I say that because I can't give you the exact answer, but I imagine there is no shot that TJ would want to leave Iowa State for Indiana. Now, there are obviously a bunch of sides to this coin. You can barely even call it a coin anymore. But why would he want to leave Iowa? It doesn't even make sense. The culture he's built here is second to none. The success he's having here, also not second to none, but very, very notable, very significant. I mean, this team was 0-18 in conference play. And then, I think that's the number, 2-22 or whatever it was. And he comes in 2 Sweet 16 in 3 years and a potential Final Four team now. The success with the recruiting and the transfer portal. I mean, he's young. It's not, it's not an age thing. I genuinely cannot think of a reason why he would leave. Now, some will say Indiana has better facilities, better, like their NIL deals are going to be better. He's going to have more resources. I think that's all a bunch of baloney. Okay. Now, is that true? Probably. I don't know. I mean, especially with the winning they did in football this year, probably going to play a role. But I'll say this, I don't think it matters. I really don't think it matters. TJ has built this thing in Ames. Very, very special. Very special what he's built here. And he's talked about it. I love Ames. I love everything that Iowa State has to offer. I think that the work he's done with Jamie Pollard, and the extension, it just shows where they're at there, relationship-wise. Obviously, you sign an extension like that. That's obviously an indicator that you want to stick around. I believe he signed a 2-year extension last year, and that was the rework that they were talking about that lowered the buyout. But now you're looking at what was an 8-year extension, essentially, because it was signed in 2024. Like, what are we even talking about him leaving for Indiana? I genuinely cannot believe that's even a conversation. Like, I just don't get it, because now when it's like, okay, well, who should we hire? Well, let's just hire Bill Belichick. Like, let's just hire anybody with a name that's really good. Like, there's no rules and there's no like concept of he's going to want to stay. I don't know. To me, it doesn't make any sense. So obviously I'm here to talk about it, but to me, it's not even like computing. Why is that even an option? I leave that to you. Like, I'm genuinely speechless on that. And to me, it's as simple as that. There's no reason for him to want to leave. He's already got it here. I'm more concerned about why we're talking about him leaving for Indiana, not whether or not he would. Literally, why are we talking about it? And honestly, I'll leave it there. I mean, Indiana, look somewhere else. Chris Beard, I know, has been thrown around. Ole Miss, the Ole Miss coach. Like, I just don't think TJ's the guy. I don't think he's going to take it. Now, we can talk about what happens if he does take it. Well, first off, I'll be shell-shocked. I'll probably be bedridden for a week or two. Like, what? No more Schmediums in Hilton? That's going to hurt. The success he's had here is literally insane, and we talk about it all the time, especially when we talked about it, him going to Miami. How successful is TJ Otzelberger? Very, very good coach. We are more than happy to have him here. I mean, I know I am. The fact that he's turned this program the way he has. I mean, obviously, Indiana would be excited to have him. How would we feel if he wasn't here? Well, now we got to figure out how we're going to get the program back to where it is now. What's the culture going to be with a new coach? Those are all questions that you answer then. But now, well, we shouldn't have to worry about that. We really shouldn't. I don't know why we're having these conversations. Matt Campbell to the Bears. TJ to Indiana. No, they just signed extensions. Everybody wants to be here. Ames is great. It's the best, actually. Cyclone Nation shows up like no other. Hilton's is super loud. Just unbelievable. I mean, you remember the 8-minute rant that he just went on? Like last week, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. Are you telling me that that's not passion for Iowa State? You think that that's just, I'm just here because, well, my contract is here, and once it's up, I'm going to be out of here. Where's the next best offer? No. So just had to throw that at the end of this one because it's not even news to me. It's like, genuinely, why are we talking about this? This is ridiculous. He's not actually going anywhere, dude. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe he's a great fit. Yeah, he's great. He's a great fit. He's a great fit anywhere. He's a great coach. God, what kind of talk is that? Well, TJ would probably be the best option for Indiana. Probably be the best option for like 99% of universities. One of the best coaches in the nation. I put him at 1A. But that's just me. But same thing with Matt Campbell, really. All right, that being said, that's going to do it for today. I just couldn't believe that was being thrown around. Like, that's not an option. Why are we even talking about that? So shout out to you guys for making it to this point. If you're not subscribed, what are you doing? We're still proving it's a Cyclone State here. Your help means the world. And yeah, we'll break down the women and their loss to Baylor tomorrow. And then obviously, what does this loss mean standing wise and all of that coming down the road. But until next time, Cyclone fans, sayonara.